2017 was a big year for the Daily Signal and specifically our video production team. That's because viewers like you meant that Daily Signal videos were watched over 125 million times in 2017. We're excited about that number and thank you. So as part of our year end, we thought we would share some of our favorite videos from this past year. Here's some of the highlights from our documentary series.
The woman's skating rink and how Donald Trump fixed it is a great insight to how he thinks and how he works. And if you applied the same standard of cutting cost and cutting time to, say, infrastructure that he applied to the women's skating rink, you could build probably $1 trillion of infrastructure for $200 or $300 billion. To set the stage, the women's skating rink was very popular, about 135,000 people a year. And in 1980 it broke and it couldn't make ice. And for some bizarre reason the city bureaucracy couldn't get it to make ice, so they spent $13 million and 6 years and they just couldn't get it done. Trump, whose house and office both look out over the Central Park, got more and more irritated and finally began to publicly harass Mayor Koch about how stupid this was. Koch finally got fed up and said, "All right, smart aleck, I'm going to give you $3 million in 6 months. You fix it." And as Trump puts it in The Art of the Deal, at that point he realized his prestige was at stake. Because if he didn't get it done, Koch was going to publicly ridicule him. And he also goes on to say, and this is my favorite line about Donald Trump, "Now that I was in charge, I realized I didn't know anything about fixing a skating rink." Now I think that's important because Trump is a man who learns as he needs to know. So he said, so now that I was in charge and I know I didn't know anything about fixing skating rinks, I said to myself, who does skating rinks? And he said, Canadians. They looked up and found the #1 skating rink company in Canada, which actually makes virtually all of the National Hockey League skating rinks. They called them, they flew in the next day. They went over and looked at the women's skating rink and they came to see Trump and they said, "This is so stupid, it's embarrassing." And they proposed a very specific solution that was very easy to do, but totally different from the very complex solution the city wanted. And he also says, because I was personally on the line, I wanted to make sure this works. So even though I'd hired the best company in the world, I showed up every day and I looked at what was going on, and it fit an old rule I'd learned years ago from a banker friend, that you get what you inspect, not what you expect. So here's this vision of Trump who's wandering around worried about the horticulture and are the plants being put in right and how are the pavements and all these different parts, because he wants it to really look good. Well, they come in about $750,000 on the budget. They take that money, they put that into a trust fund that goes to modernize and take care of the rink and the park around the rink. They charge to use the rink. They more than double the number of people, or they about double the number of people. It goes from, I think, 138,000 to 256,000. And the profit from that goes into the same trust fund. So you have this model of an entrepreneur cutting through all the red tape, going to the best at the business, getting it done quickly, and then sharing with the community all the profits from the achievements. This project doesn't matter to him financially. What mattered to him was there was this eyesore in the middle of Central Park, and it was sad that people wanted to go ice skating. You know, it's sort of the definition of Trumpism being anti-stupid. An ice rink that doesn't make ice is stupid. And so Trump doesn't like things that are stupid, so he stepped in and fixed it. I think it's a great story about Trump, and it's a good example of why entrepreneurs can do things that bureaucracies can't do.
One of the most frustrating comments I would get throughout my career was the fact that they would say, "You're Mexican. Doesn't it bother you arresting your own kind?" My name is Arturo Payan, but everybody who's worked around me and grew up around me knows me by Turi. My father, when he first came over, he's from Saucillo, Chihuahua, which is, of course, the state of Chihuahua, south of Juarez, south of El Paso. He was what they would refer to a wetback because he crossed the river and he was here illegally. He eventually went back, got his paperwork, came over, married my mom, who's from El Paso. But he was an illegal alien when he first got here. So I know about the illegals. I wasn't born yet, but he'd tell me stories. My dad was a professional field worker, one of the best I've ever seen. Nobody picked cotton or whatever it was better than him. He was good at it. You could say I'm a quasi-professional field worker because I spent my young years, up until I was a junior in high school, out in the fields helping him. When I got into the Border Patrol, I thought my dad would be a little bit disappointed. But he was very proud of me. He was very proud that I got the job and very proud that I became an agent. I smile about it because from an illegal alien son, a resident alien son, a migrant worker's son, to a Border Patrol agent, you know, it's kind of a contrast, you know. But I enjoyed my career. When I worked along the border, yeah, I could sympathize with these people. You know, the homes they live in, the hard lives they have, and I understand why they're coming over. But I hired on as a Border Patrol agent, and I did my job. One of the most frustrating comments I would get throughout my career was the fact that they would say, "You're Mexican. Doesn't it bother you arresting your own kind? You know what you're doing when you get here. You know you're crossing illegally. You know the chances are slim, maybe, that eventually you may get caught. It's just like someone breaking the law. If you continue to break the law, you might just get caught. You did it willingly, now you gotta suffer the consequences." The thing about the illegal status is that doesn't end unless you make an effort to rectify it, and most of them don't. Why should I? I can work, counterfeit documents, counterfeit Social Security. California will give you a license now, so why should I even bother? And sympathize, I feel bad. They raised a family here. They have their kids here. But if I send Dad home, that was the risk he took when he first came over here. He should have done something like my father. How's that for an answer? My father fell in love with my mom and went back and did the right thing. If he can do it, everyone else can do it. Plain and simple. Both my ankles are slowly deteriorating because of all the falls and missteps that I did in the canyons and running around in the night. Both my knees are bad, one through the military, the other one through work. My right hip is shot. And I'm finding out that both my wrists are deteriorating and they want to fuse them, which means I can't bend them. So, bluntly, I hurt constantly. But I do it again. I love the grief.
Last year, a $2 million government-funded program started under the Obama administration came into this small town in eastern Kentucky with big plans to turn coal country into code country.
Today I'm announcing a new initiative that we're calling Tech Hire.
The program, which was hosted right here on this community college campus, received national attention, including its own segment on The Daily Show.
One of the ARC's many efforts is a software development training program called Techie. To make Techie happen, the ARC partnered with local firm Interap.
Candidates were told by Interap they would be paid to learn coding, work at an internship, and be hired as a full-time employee upon successful completion of the internship. Led by Interap CEO Ankar Gopal, this private-public partnership promised to create up to 200 new tech jobs in a town that depended on coal. But instead, they employed just 17.
Sometimes when you're promised something, you may be being lied to. And that's what happened to these people.
Well, my name is Ben Larrabee, and I've lived in Eastern Kentucky pretty much all my life. For the last 13 or so years, I've been a math teacher. Found myself unemployed, and found the Interap program. The thing that got 800 plus people to apply and go through the process was that it promised, jobs that would run from 30 to 40,000 a year.
We were criticized in this office for not being totally behind InterApp. Well, we are the type of people here that want to see what's going to happen before we actually get behind something that we know may be a scam.
I did kind of quit looking at other teaching jobs and, probably missed an opportunity or two while I was in the program, but I wasn't really too concerned because it's like, well, I was going to be going into a good job when it was over.
What did you think when you realized you weren't going to get a job with InterApp, the job that you were promised?
I was just shocked. I really thought, how could this happen? I poured my soul into this. I did everything I thought I was supposed to. Why did this happen?
Inside here is the InterApp classroom. We were allowed in yesterday, but nobody wants to talk to us today.
They spend $2 million and say they created 17 jobs. Well, the city of Paintsville's not seen 17 jobs. I don't know where the jobs went. I don't even know if they created 17 jobs. But I do know this city could have used $2 million.
So you all got trained for jobs that not only don't exist at InterApp, but they don't exist in all of Eastern Kentucky.
Pretty close to it. There have been a few things to pop up. You really have to move somewhere, and I personally, I'm anchored to the Eastern Kentucky.
Nationally, the story of Techie is not unique. According to a study commissioned by the Obama administration, these taxpayer-funded workforce training programs are largely ineffective. But despite this, they still receive billions of dollars in federal funding and have broad support from Democrats and Republicans alike.
Encore, with all good intention and with all good effort made, did not attain the level of success that he had hoped for, or that I think people in this community had hoped for. But the thing that I'm struck by is he was also trying to do something that was essentially unprecedented in some respects.
I just don't think that you can be completely run by federal government and then pouring millions and millions of dollars into people's pockets and better a community like Paintsville. And God knows we need people working in this community. And we understand the money's got to come federally. We understand that. But we also need to understand that it needs to go state, then local.
So the InterApp Tech Hire program was bad enough for them to get kicked off of this Big Sandy campus, and yet the CEO of InterApp is out in places as far as Wyoming trying to replicate and even expand the program.
I actually reached out to the economic developer in Johnson County, Wyoming, and sent him a message. Didn't get a reply back from him. I got a reply back from Mr. Gopal.
Look, I wouldn't have done this if I didn't think this would work. We've seen people already move off of food stamps because of our program. We've seen people already improve their health and improve their lifestyle. So we're seeing this ripple effect occur.
There's nobody in the city of Paintsville got off food stamps because of InterApp. So where do they get their information? Did they just make it up?
Thankfully, I had another skill set I could fall back on. I did get hired as a teacher. It's a brand new STEM school. I'm getting to use my experience that I've learned at Big Sandy, and I'll be able to teach some computer science at the STEM school. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that went through this program, not all of them have a skill set to fall back on. And that's the people I was really upset for.
People want to help your community. But then when you see examples like this, where people take advantage of federal dollars and make promises they can't keep, it really begs the question, what can be done to help areas like Paintsville?
Well, I know this is a black eye But what you have to understand about Eastern Kentucky, these guys want to work. I used to shine shoes right there on that corner when I was a little boy. And now I'm sitting here behind this desk as mayor. We're going to make it one way or the other.
I was 20 weeks pregnant and my water broke. And I went to the doctor on that Monday and he missed it. He said everything was fine. I looked perfect. Nothing was wrong. My life was at stake, and they said that the longer I kept him in, the more risk I had for going septic. But for me, it was no choice. I said I'm refusing treatment until he comes on his own.
Literally, they were telling us days are monumental, hours are so important at that gestation. So the longer we waited was better for Micah, but the longer he was still in there was more dangerous to her.
They said, you know, he was likely going to have all these complications and these issues. If they could save him at all, they asked me if I wanted to try to resuscitate him, and I said absolutely. When I gave birth to Micah, I was 22 weeks and 4 days gestational. So then we heard him cry upon birth twice, and it was the most beautiful sound, because then we knew that he had a fighting chance right then.
He's 5 years old, and he was as full of life when he was born as he is now, you know, just a lot smaller. So I think just being able to put a face to a lot of these babies that don't have a voice, I think that's what he's doing.
Micah now is a fun kid. He has the most amazing laugh. He loves to be tickled. He begs to be tickled. He loves to spin and he loves to play. He is one of the most compassionate kids. Anytime somebody's hurt, he'll go, "What happened?" And he gets all sad, and he loves to be a help, and he loves to play and have fun. Just that's his middle name is fun. He's just amazing.
The truth has to be told, you know, and I think Micah does that. And to me, if you honestly think pro-choice is right and good and moral, my only challenge would be is go watch one. And if you think it's okay, then you go watch one, and then step out and say it's okay.
Just want to say on the issue of late-term abortion is just look at that baby. That is fully formed. You know, that baby has a heartbeat. That baby has a brain and kicks and does hiccups and is fully formed and just ready for this world. And just consider that person that's inside and realize that that person could be our next president. That person could be even the person that, you know, serves you your coffee in the morning. That person makes a difference in the world, and that the world will never be the same without that little baby.
Every time you fire an unsuppressed gun without hearing protection, you're getting hearing loss. Like, medically, that's just a fact.
Most of us only know about suppressors, or silencers, as they're more commonly called, from what we see in the movies. But recently, these gun accessories have become a huge topic of debate, with some Republicans and even President Donald Trump's son advocating to pass legislation that would make them more easily available to protect against hearing damage.
It's about safety. If you had that kind of noise levels in any other industry as you would in shooting sports, You know, OSHA would be all over the place. People would be going crazy. I mean, it's about safety. It's just another rule the government wants to put in place for no reason.
So we are going where else but to the NRA range to try a few out and see what they are really all about.
The actual term used in federal law is a firearm silencer or firearm muffler, but it's a bit of a misnomer based on the way that people perceive them from Hollywood.
The silencer makes a whisper of the gunshot.
It really suppresses the sound of the firearm. It doesn't actually silence it.
Yes. Considerably.
This is a .22 pistol unsuppressed. It's really loud. It's loud.
Yeah.
I really can't imagine someone shooting that gun without hearing protection, but now we're going to try it with a suppressor. Much smoother. It's definitely quieter, but it's still got that recoil. What are the current laws regulating suppressors, and why do you think it's time for them to be changed?
They're way over-regulated, actually, because the current laws regulating suppressors in the United States go back to 1934. They generally require registration, a $200 tax on every transfer of the suppressor, and they require what is now almost, in many cases, an 8 to maybe 12-month wait. So that's how long it's taking ATF to actually process these. And yet, it's not a weapon in any way. It's just a device that helps suppress the sound of the firearm.
So this little piece of equipment right here has a $200 tax.
That's right. Even though the firearm that it attaches to does not.
To change this, the gun lobby is advocating for a bill called the Hearing Protection Act, which earlier this year was introduced in Congress by Senator Mike Crapo, a Republican from Idaho.
Well, it's very simple. Basically, it stops the current federal tax and very lengthy and cumbersome process of getting a permit and authorization to purchase a suppressor, and treats suppressors like the purchase of a firearm. Instead of having to pay $200 and wait 8 months for a permit and submit your fingerprints and go through an entirely different bureaucratic system, you can purchase a suppressor like you purchase a firearm today. Namely, you go in, you do an instant criminal background check, and if you pass the background check, then you're able to purchase the suppressor.
I think a lot of people hear the name of this law, the Hearing Protection Act, and think that lawmakers and special interest groups are trying to disguise it in a way to help public safety when really there's another interest involved. What do you say to them?
It's interesting, and I can understand why sometimes people would think that it's a law trying to characterize something as a safety or a health issue when it's not. But over the last 10 years, I think the number of crimes that have involved a suppressor is something like 15. And the fact is that people don't try to use suppressors in the commission of crimes.
A woman from the Brady campaign said there's no evidence of hearing loss from firearms, which is just insane. Like, every time you fire an unsuppressed gun without hearing protection, you're getting hearing loss. Like, medically, that's just a fact.
Isn't there an argument to be made that these regulations actually are working because there are not many instances of criminals using suppressors?
I don't think that's the case, because if you look at how suppressors, are actually used in crime when they are, it's extremely rare, but it's also that the types of crimes that people commit with firearms are usually with small concealable handguns, and suppressors aren't useful for that. They don't actually do anything that's really particularly useful for a criminal. Like you saw, they don't make the gun super quiet, so you can't, people aren't gonna not notice the gun being fired, so it doesn't really add anything, and it actually detracts from a lot of the features that criminals are gonna want in a firearm.
Sometimes I think that the movies and the TV shows about secret agents and shootouts create a false impression of what a suppressor is. It doesn't silence the gun, it just reduces the amount of the noise so that it doesn't cause ear damage.
Do you think that you're going to be successful in passing the Hearing Protection Act?
I think it's going to be a very long fight. We still need 60 votes in the Senate. That's not going to be easy. I think the most important thing is, as more and more people are exposed to suppressors, the educational campaign has really changed a lot of people's minds. They understand that it's not Hollywood, it's real life, and all these are is actually just hearing protection.
How do we end up at the U.S. Supreme Court? It's a long story. I'm Jack Phillips, and this is Masterpiece Cake Shop. We're in Lakewood, Colorado. I want to live my life as though Jesus Christ were with me all the time, because he is. But I want to live in a way that honors him in everything that I do. All my life, I love to draw, love to paint, love to create all kinds of artwork like that. That was, how I filled my time if there was nothing else to do. When I first graduated high school, I needed a job, went to work in a bakery, found that I loved the entire environment of working in a bakery. And I saw that you could combine the two, the art that I love to do and the art of baking, like that's just a natural. One day I'll open my own bakery, I'm thinking. Took a while, put away some money, bought some stuff, and here we are.
I'm Lisa Eldfrick. I'm his youngest, the one that stuck around in town. We just kind of grew up, all of us kids worked here at some point. I have a brother, sister, and me.
There's always been a core family here. Two men came into my shop one day, and they sat down at our wedding desk. We'd have introductions, and they say, we're here to look at for our wedding cake, and it's for our wedding. And right away, I'm thinking, I can't help these two guys out because I don't make cakes for same-sex weddings. So I try to politely say, I'm sorry guys, I don't do cakes for same-sex weddings.
I couldn't hear much of what was going on, just like little bits, but it was really short.
They went out, stormed out, flipped me off, swore at me, and then started a campaign against me and sued me.
It was pretty quickly afterwards we started getting phone calls, and then they just started coming. And they were so awful that my dad just took over the phone and wouldn't let any of us ladies answer it.
The case has progressed to where now we're at the U.S. Supreme Court.
After the couple filed a complaint with the Colorado Civil Rights Commission, the commission decided to pursue that. The Colorado Commission then heard that case as well and affirmed the ALJ's decision, which was that Jack has no First Amendment rights in this case. And the Colorado Court of Appeals said the same thing, that Jack has no First Amendment rights and was not engaging in speech, nor did he have a right to freely practice his religion.
The U.S. Supreme Court has found over and over that you cannot discriminate on the basis of race, and sexual orientation is a status absolutely like race.
So in order to comply with both obeying the law and my conscience of not doing these cakes that I can't do, we've decided a while back that when the ruling came down that we wouldn't make any wedding cakes, period, which is a devastating thing for us. It was 40% of our income about. Before this happened, I had 10 people on payroll. Now I have 4, counting me. I have refrigerators in the back that during the springtime, summertime, they'd be full of wedding cakes. There'd be people, a lot of hustle and bustle around.
What's at stake in this case is the right of all creative professionals to be able to create artistic expression that's consistent with their convictions. But I think we really need to ask ourselves, it's not just the Christian faith that's under attack here. Are we really willing to have Jewish, Muslim, Catholic, Protestant creative professionals all purged from the public square simply because of their religious beliefs?
I serve everybody who comes in the door. I may not make that cake, but the person who comes in is always welcome. And same thing with these 2 gentlemen that came in. I serve everybody. I just don't make cakes for every event.
It's had all kinds of moments. It's not always been, lots of fun. It's not always been horrible that, you just want to hide. But there have been dark moments and really exciting moments, but watching him go through it, and I think the community and people, as they know my dad, when they watch him go through it, he's just level.
If I could communicate anything to the people who take their time to call me up or read an article, look me up and send an email, how much I value that support and how much I want to stand firm, to do what's right, and to honor my God, and to let them know that what I'm doing, I'm also doing for them, and that they'll be able to say, I agree with this man, he's doing what's right, and I hope he wins.
He has such a kindness and a compassion, and people are drawn to that, and they come in and just want to talk to my dad. They might buy just a cookie, and they'll spend a half an hour here just talking to my dad, because that's the type of person that he is, and that could be in the middle of the storm, and people just don't know that he's going through crazy stuff because he just has always been able to handle it, which is why I think one of the reasons that God has chosen my dad to be the one for this, because he's just can handle it.
It's easy as a lawyer to think about the legal principles involved in a case and defend the injustice of it, and I'm certainly all about that and pursuing that. But when you actually come to Masterpiece Cake Shop and you're in Jack's world, and you see the devastating loss that he has sustained as a result of this. The loss that means he can't go on vacation because he has no one to keep the shop open. The loss that his family doesn't have half of its income anymore. Those types of things you can't catch over the phone, and you certainly can't capture in a legal argument.
This experience hasn't challenged my faith in any negative ways. It's challenged me to grow and to spend more time in the Bible and with fellowship with other Christians, other believers, to encourage me and encourage them and help each other to grow more in our faith.
That night I got out my Bible and I was like, God, you got to show me what it says, because I've always kind of lived off of what my parents believed. So it's been 5 years now. It is catapulted into just a true, like a true love for God's Word and what it says, and a desire to follow it.
I'm amazed at the courage they have, at the joy they display in the midst of suffering, and just the peace that they have in walking through this.
It's a small bakery, it's just a family place, but he's enabled me for over 20 years to make a living doing the art, doing the painting, doing the sculpting, working with the people, serving as many people as I can, as well as I can. It's a love for the God who created me and a desire to want to serve him and follow him.
My dad's the best. He signs my paycheck, so he's the best. Actually, my mom does now, so he's out of the picture.